Alexa, tell BTI presenter to start my presentation.
I can start 3 presentations. Pikachu, I can't see you. Knock knock jokes for dummies. Or Lambda Orange Slice. Which would you like?
Lambda Orange Slice.
Did you mean Lambda Orange Slice?
Yes.
Starting Lambda Orange Slice.
So that was kind of cool, right? And all of you that hate keyboards and mice, you're welcome. You no longer need them. But how would we get the Echo to talk to Keynote? Well, we'd need code. We'd probably use some frameworks like Spring, maybe Jersey for web services, bundled all up in Tomcat, put it out on EC2 in a VPC. And then, obviously, starting presentations is the next big thing. So we need an auto-scaling group to handle load, and a load balancer, and DNS entries, and CloudWatch alarms to handle the scaling triggers, and then maybe CloudFormation templates and OpsWorks. And it all just gets a bit overwhelming. But it doesn't have to. What if we didn't need those alarms, or CloudFormation or OpsWorks? What if we didn't need the auto-scaling group, or the load balancer, or DNS entries? What if we didn't even need Tomcat or EC2? And what if we didn't need frameworks like Spring and Jersey? What does that leave us with? Just our code. And Lambda. AWS Lambda Coding without infrastructure. Lambda is a new way of thinking about application development and deployment. It's a serverless environment that lets you focus on your code without worrying about the hassle of deploying to the cloud. I've been using Lambda for about a year now for anything from checking for account expirations in an LDAP server to moving files between S3 buckets. And I'm not alone. Industry leaders are also starting to use Lambda. Large companies like Netflix, Capital One, Major League Baseball, Amazon, smaller companies like Localytics and Fraud.net, they're all using Lambda for several compelling reasons. Lambda is simple. It makes developers' lives easier because it lets you focus on the problem you're trying to solve. Vidroll, a video advertising company, moved to Lambda when they realized their developers were focused more on managing infrastructure than they were on writing code. Now, with no infrastructure to manage, they get back to doing what they love. Lambda also forces you to break your application down into smaller pieces, which makes it easier to manage throughout the software lifecycle. ConnectWise analyzes business operations for IT companies. They moved their entire log analysis platform to Lambda, and now they can develop new analytics in hours instead of days. They can deploy them in minutes instead of days. And their dashboards run in real time instead of lagging by hours or days. ClickTravel, another small company, is migrating their entire platform from a single app hosted on EC2 to a suite of Lambda microservices. Why? It makes it a lot easier to integrate with their partners like hotels and airlines because they can write a custom function for every integration. Lambda is scalable. Every function you write automatically scales based on the number of events that it receives. There's zero configuration. There are no servers to scale up or down. Localytics analyzes mobile app usage for companies like ESPN, eBay, and the New York Times. All of their analytics run as Lambda functions in parallel on data coming in through Kinesis streams. Major League Baseball uses Lambda to analyze every pitch of every play of every game in real time to drive their player tracking system StatCast. And Fraud.net uses Lambda to analyze billions of retail transactions daily to search for fraud. So now I have all the developers in the room hooked. How do you convince management that Lambda is right for them? Lambda is affordable. You only pay for the time your code executes, every 100 milliseconds based on the amount of memory you use. And then there's a small charge for every million function calls. Lambda also has a free tier, but unlike EC2, it doesn't expire after a year. You get your first 1,000,000 calls and your first 400,000 gigabyte seconds of execution free every month. So let's compare Lambda to EC2. Let's say you have a service. It's called periodically throughout the day, so you need a server up 24/7 to make sure you can handle it. It runs in about a second and uses 128 megabytes of RAM. So Lambda runs on Amazon's M4 family, so we'll compare to an M4 extra large. That's going to cost you $87 a month just to keep up and running. Let's say you have 1 million calls a month. With Lambda, you pay nothing. 2 million calls a month. You pay 20 cents, just that extra charge for the extra million calls. At 3.5 million calls, we pay for execution time. We're just over $1 a month to handle 80 calls a minute. 10 million calls, under $20. 25 million calls, we're at $50. Finally, when we get to 41.5 million calls a month, nearly 16 every second, we're paying as much as we are for that EC2 server. And that doesn't include the time and effort to manage the server, patch the server, harden the server, monitor the server. So why don't we use Lambda for everything? Well, while the benefits are substantial, there are a few limitations. Your functions have to run inside of 5 minutes. You're limited to a 6 megabyte request and response payload. And if your function isn't called frequently, there can be a lag of 2 to 3 seconds as Lambda deploys your code. When you first open your account, Amazon limits you to 100 concurrent executions across all of your Lambda functions. Unlike the other limits, this one is easily increased through a support request. So weighing the pros and cons, what might you use Lambda for? Well, you've already seen Lambda in action today. Amazon uses Lambda to drive every skill for the Echo, from playing music to opening a presentation. You can use Lambda for a cron replacement. You can schedule jobs daily, monthly, every second. Anything you can do with cron, you can do with Lambda, no server required. Lambda is great for small services like authentication and authorization. API Gateway uses Lambda to do custom auth for all of your API calls so that you can lock them down at the call level. A lot of companies are starting to use Lambda for log processing and even infrastructure management. Netflix recently transitioned their legacy system that polled every single one of their servers periodically with an event-driven Lambda-based rules engine that scales their infrastructure to meet demand, triggers and verifies all of their backups. It alerts them to abnormal network conditions, and it even verifies server configurations before adding them to production clusters. Capital One developed a tool called Cloud Custodian that uses Lambda and CloudWatch events to help you manage your cloud resources. They've recently open sourced that tool. You can go out and download it today. Lambda is excellent for ETL and streaming data processing. Anything from social media feeds to internet click streams to Internet of Things data. Nordstrom is currently using Lambda to analyze user behavior on their website to drive their product recommendation engine. And VidRoll, the advertising company, processes bids in real time for their content. And when providers upload new videos, Lambda triggers video transcoding so it's available on all of the platforms they support. Lambda is amazing for microservices. It already forces you to break your code down into small, focused pieces. And combined with Amazon's API Gateway, it makes it simple to implement, deploy, and scale web services and RESTful APIs. Now, every single one of these examples is really just part of an emerging trend in application design, event-driven architecture, which is what Lambda excels at. So how do you get started? First, decide how your function is going to get triggered. Lambda integrates with several Amazon services already: API Gateway, Dynamo, S3, Internet of Things devices like the Echo or your smart thermostat, and you can call Lambda functions from Amazon's API and CLI tools. So once you know how your function is going to get started, decide what language you'd like to use. Lambda supports Java, Python, and Node.js. Then write your function, upload it, and your Lambda function is live. So by now, I know you're all ready to race off and start writing Lambda code. You can get started at home for free today. You more than likely won't write a function that exceeds Lambda's free tier. And if you do, figure out how to monetize that. Unfortunately, Lambda is not yet available on most of our projects on site. So there's something I need you all to do. Tomorrow, you will get an email with instructions on how to go tell the Amazon team that you want Lambda. So go to the site and cast your vote for AWS Lambda. Simple, scalable, affordable, coding without infrastructure. Any questions?
So you say the code, you're forced to take what you have, you put it in smaller chunks. Can you give some examples?
So it's really just that you want to make a purpose-built function. So like I had one Lambda function that I just wrote. We were having a problem. We had to migrate like 6.5 million files between S3 buckets. And I had it running just on an EC2 instance, and it got through 1 million of them in about a week. So I figured out what files I needed, threw them into a Kinesis data stream, and my Lambda function literally just took an event off the stream, looked at the source and destination, and then copied it to S3 and wrote a record in Dynamo. And that was all the Lambda function did, and it finished in 12 hours over the weekend. So, and then we're also implementing, we're using API Gateway actually, and so every single API call, like a get is a single Lambda function, a search is a Lambda function.
What testing tools and approaches does Lambda support?
So you can test all the code locally with various tools and just kind of simulate the Lambda events. Once you upload it to Amazon, they have a test console on the web page that lets you kind of put in the JSON event that you want to use and test it from there. I have not found a whole lot of automated testing against the Lambda environment. It's one of the drawbacks.
If you've got if you rely on a lot of caching, is there any way to keep a cache layer and use it in Lambda?
So with API Gateway, Lambda, API Gateway actually has built-in caching that you can turn on if you spin up. I think it uses Elasticache on the back end. So it'll actually cache the responses from the Lambdas without you needing to go back to it. The other thing you can do is just build it straight into the Lambda function and just call a cache layer from the Lambda first.
Well, this is more like even Java cached objects.
No, so Amazon will deploy some number of instances of your code. So if you happen to hit the same deployed instance with a subsequent call, you could still have some things available, but they're supposed to be designed to be completely stateless.
Did you watch Steve Jobs' presentations before you gave that presentation?
Nope.
No?
I can't believe nobody asked me if the other presentations actually work.
Yeah, what were the knock-knock jokes?
Alexa, tell BTI presenter to start my knock-knock jokes for dummies presentation.
Starting knock-knock jokes for dummies.